it got to a point in my advocacy career where my life in London was no longer a life. I was living with constant death threats. I was being attacked. I was being stalked. I was not having a nice life in London. And I decided the best thing would be for me to come to Israel. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's the biggest blessing in disguise.
I remember being in that helicopter thinking to myself, how did I get to this point in my life? I grew up in Massachusetts. This is what it means to follow through on a decision. When I signed up to draft, and I knew there was a possibility I'd be in a war. I made a decision. I'm going to follow it through until its end.
October 7th, it was hell. I've been there, fought pure evil. Satan himself. Those people came to butcher, to rape, to murder, to take lives. This is what they came to do. Frontline Advocates was founded exactly thanks to people like Jess, like Nate. Their voices is my life's mission to amplify, because when Jews are staying silent, this is when the troubles are getting bigger and bigger. You have to stop it, to cut it from its roots before it is too late.
Today, we're joined by three people who are fighting for Israel in very different ways. Stav Cohen is no stranger to Stand Tall Israel. He's an IDF combat veteran and the founder of Frontline Advocates, an organization bringing Israeli veterans and frontline voices to campuses and communities around the world. We're also joined by Jewish Jess, who grew up in the United Kingdom before making Aliyah to Israel. She has become one of the most recognizable pro-Israel voices on social media, documenting daily life in Israel while confronting anti-Semitism and misinformation online. We're also joined by Nate Gordon, who is an IDF combat soldier, reservist, and law student who has experienced Israel's security challenges firsthand while also studying the legal debates surrounding the conflict. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure being here once again.
Thanks for having us.
I want to start with something that's been on the headlines recently. I want to get your input on it. A few days ago, New York City's Mayor Zoran Mamdani said that his administration is exploring whether it could arrest Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu if he visits New York for the UN General Assembly. Now, what is your reaction to when you hear something like that, and what are your thoughts?
Try it. Do it. Good luck to you, Mayor Mamdani. He doesn't have the legal authority to arrest Netanyahu, but I'd really like to see him try, because the likeliness is he himself would end up in handcuffs rather than Netanyahu. And in my humble British opinion, that would not be a bad thing. So try it.
Nate, as a law student, does a mayor actually have the legal authority to do something like that?
Yeah, I've been studying law for about 6 months, so you'll have to go to an expert, someone like Tal Becker, one of the best voices on that. I will say that the U.S. is not signed to the Rome Statute, so the ICC's arrest warrants, their jurisdiction in the U.S. are not very legitimate. I'd also like to add to this conversation the fact that about a week ago, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, published a piece calling for the dismantling of the ICC in the Wall Street Journal. He argued that the court undermines the sovereignty of countries, especially ones like the U.S., that didn't sign the treaty establishing the court. And I think the main point here is when international tribunals that claim to have judicial legitimacy and are meant to solve disagreements and enforce human rights, when those become public forums for countries to express how moral they think they are, then those international bodies lose their legitimacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stav, what are your thoughts?
Well, believe it or not, Danielle, I'm actually literally 300 meters away from the UN. I'm at The Hague, Netherlands, and I'm taking an international law course. But even without that course, without being a lawyer, I can tell you whatever other person can tell you. And this is exactly what my fellow colleagues here have said. Mamdani has zero authority as far as arresting Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't think he knows much about international law, but regardless of international law, we've seen what Mamdani promised, right? He promised, what was it? Free public transportation, free buses. Bus trips actually increased prices and actually went up. How much? I believe 35-40% ish. So, and this is just the beginning. It's an ongoing process. he says whatever he needs to say in order to get what he needs to get. This is a pure communist. This is how they act, how they operate. And I think what Jess said pretty much sums it up very beautifully, because I want to see him try arrest Benjamin Netanyahu when the president of the greatest, strongest nation on earth specifically said this won't happen.
Yeah. Now, regardless of the legality of it, what message do you think that, these headlines send around the world? Maybe we could talk more broadly about, the PR war.
I think that
Yes.
by insinuating that he is going to even attempt to arrest Netanyahu, he's almost legitimizing the accusation that Netanyahu is a war criminal, which is only according, of course, to the ICC, which is a kangaroo court that the USA and Israel is not party to anyway. So by Mamdani saying, yes, I'm going to try to find a way to arrest Netanyahu, it's legitimizing their statements, their ruling, and it's problematic, specifically in terms of PR. That being said, a lot of the voters and the youth of New York have already made that prejudgment that Netanyahu is in fact a war criminal regardless. So is it damaging in New York City? Probably not. But globally, yes, it gives it some legitimacy and some weight.
Mm-hmm. Nate, do you have any thoughts?
I think the only thing I might add is we had two U.S. service members being killed recently, and I think when the mayor of New York is trying to arrest prime minister of a country that's fighting the same enemy, Iran, that the U.S. is, it just completely undermines American foreign policy, and I think he should stick to New York. I grew up in Massachusetts, so I'm a Boston sports fan. I didn't like New York to begin with, but this isn't helping anything having to do with that city. But I think he should stick to and I say this for a lot of people on perhaps the more left side of the political spectrum. Israel is a real place with real people, real kids, real schools. To turn it into some kind of morality test is completely wrong, and that's what I see Mamdani doing. So I think he should stick to running his city as well as he can.
Yeah. Stav, do you have any input here?
I have an answer. My 2 cents here for Mamdani, New York prime minister trying to arrest Israel's prime minister, is the intent. Think about it this way. Mamdani doesn't give a damn about who the individual is. He doesn't care about Benjamin Netanyahu. He cares about the message, the propaganda of arresting Israel's prime minister, whilst he refused to recognize the state of Israel as the Jewish homeland, right, as a Jewish state. Our answer, Frontline Advocates' answer, is the best answer possible: delegation. We're going to bring IDF soldiers, influencers such as Jess here, Nova survivors, IDF disabled veterans to New York, straight to Mamdani's office, and we're going to demand to debate him. And you know what's the beauty of it? We don't scare from his propaganda or anything. We are willing to confront him with cameras, he knows what he's doing as far as lying in front of the cameras. It's just my personal opinion. Of course, I'm not representing some other person's opinion, but Obama's administration, the agreement in 2015 did horrible stuff. It actually led to the situation that we're facing today, and he was a great speaker. That being said, he will lose when he'll have to face us, because at the end of the day, we grew up in either England, America, Israel, different places with a very strong common ground, and that is justice, fighting for what's right, democracy.
Yeah. Speaking of democracy, why do you think it is that Israel is being judged differently than other democracies? If anybody else was attacked like Israel was on October 7th, I think there would be a lot more global support. But when it comes to Israel, already on October 8th, there were protests. And 3 years in, we're going through all of this now. What do you think it is? Why is Israel kind of being picked on? in your opinion?
Well, I think much like what I said earlier regarding people already making up their minds about Netanyahu being a war criminal, I think they've done the exact same thing when it comes to the state of Israel as a state. They have already made up their minds. There is a predisposition to fundamentally disagree with the state of Israel and its existence. And unfortunately, all the events of the last 3 years have not turned people, but they have continued to bolster the people's idea and the people's premise that Israel as a state shouldn't exist. It's always been a premise, it's always been a conversation, and it's come to the forefront of geopolitics right now, and it's been exacerbated. I don't think necessarily that we've been judged fairly, because I think from the offset, from 1947 onwards, the state of Israel has been contentious. It's been questioned. Nothing's changed. It's just like a boulder rolling down a hill. It's just continuing to collect mud. And it's got to such a point now where we cannot do anything right in the eyes of the public anymore. It doesn't matter what we do. We send troops to Venezuela to look after them after an earthquake, and they get harassed in Venezuela. They're saving lives. We can't do anything right. Unfortunately, we are judged unfairly. It is the way of the world, and the way to combat that is to, as Stav said earlier, is to advocate, is to fight for the country, is to show the real people behind this country and the humanity, bring that back to the forefront, because I think it's been lost in the public sphere.
Yeah. Nate, you have anything to add?
No, I think what Jess said is spot on. This is one of the $1 million questions in modern Jewish life. Why, or also ancient Jewish life? Why us? Why of all the people? And there's a lot of good things going on in the world. There's a lot of bad things going on in the world. Why is the international media focusing on us? And so often when I hear people answering this question, the typical response is, well, anti-Semitism. That's the way it's been. That's the way it's going to go. And I think that's a reasonable explanation. Another one I'd like to add to the conversation is the fact that I believe Jews hold themselves to a very high standard. And I think when we hold ourselves to that high standard, when we are accused of being less than that, we take action and we speak up. And by doing that, we're creating a conversation. We're creating forums for other people to respond to us. And I think the ball rolling, as Jess said, is right. So in addition to the kind of common explanation of anti-Semitism, I would like to add the concept of Jews holding them to a higher standard, and by doing so, the world holding us to higher standards. Some might call them double standards, but a different standard and possibly a higher standard than anyone else in the world is expected to have.
Stav, do you think this is the reason why you created Frontline Advocates, was to deal with this major issue of Israel being singled out of all the other countries and to just point out all the hypocrisy?
Absolutely, Daniel. We established Frontline Advocates because we had enough with the soft content. I personally love speaking in shuls and strengthen, if I have the opportunity, the privilege to strengthen the Jewish resilience and to talk to the people. But if you are finding yourself time and again getting a rounds of applause before you said a word, you're most likely in the wrong room. I had enough with sneaking in through the back door of a shul, tell my story, make some people cry, sing a tikva, some schmoozing, some pictures, and that's it. And God forbid, not posting a story while I'm out there because security concerns. I think, Daniel, you asked an amazing question, and that is why Israel is being picked or hunted by the rest of the world, specifically the Western world, the Western media. And I believe that this is because our crimes, our biggest crimes as Jews, the state of Israel is being hunted not because of political reasons. It's because we're Jews. It's because it's the Jewish homeland. For me, when you, Daniel, are in the States, you are the state of Israel. So you and I are being hunted down because we're Jews. And the biggest 3 crimes that Jews has ever committed are A, we survived the Holocaust. B, we started a state. C, we won in every freaking war that they waged on us. They cannot comprehend how is it that such a small entity, such a small group of people could achieve so much in such a short time. I believe that we have a respectful percentage of the Oscar awards winning, right? I used to know exactly how much. Maybe your viewers can help us out exactly with how much is it. And if I may to share a personal experience, I'm here at the UN taking an international law course. The other day, students from all over the world, Taiwan, China, you name it, sent pictures from delegations, group pictures from the Chinese embassy, from the US embassy, etc. The Israeli group embassy picture got pushback. Of course, how not? One of the Israelis stood up, her name is Maya. She's an officer. She's only 25, but she's a freaking hero. And she said, guys, to 350 people next European leaders, she said, guys, I want you to know this is disrespectful and quite frankly, disgusting to get that pushback. We got emojis and hate messages, etc. And then we opened up a debate. Dozens of students, Danielle, from all over the world, young people, are washing us with hate messages. It literally gets to a point that we've been called terrorists, baby killers, genocide maniacs, you name it. We went to the manager, to the head of the course, the secretary general. Of course, they did not want to hear whatever we had to say. And they said, well, it happens, unfortunately, time and again. Say thank you that this year they didn't come wearing the kafia. They closed the WhatsApp group or the option for participants to send a message. And this was the response. When anti-Semitism doesn't face consequences, what you get is two things: freedom to do whatever you want. B, you get the chance to be a hero. But you know what hero needs more than anything in the war, Danielle? A victim. And this is exactly why they always show that small 5-year-old pregnant baby kid in Gaza. Even if the picture, the video is fake, they need meaning in their lives. Viktor Frankl, man searching for a meaning, they need that meaning. Otherwise, they just have blue, purple hair. They don't know if they're a man or a woman, and they're looking to do something with their lives.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I wanted to get into your personal stories. Let's start with Jess. Who were you growing up? Why did you leave England, make Aliyah? Maybe, tell us what your personal story.
Well, I grew up in northwest London in a very Jewish neighbourhood. I grew up culturally Jewish and I wasn't particularly observant, but I always had strong cultural ties to my Judaism. I lived in a house with my parents and my two sisters. They both went to Jewish schools. I didn't have the pleasure of going to a Jewish school, so I wasn't too immersed in the Jewish community. I grew up flying in and out of Israel on holidays every year, twice a year, and I had an internal, undying love for this country. I was working in the fashion marketing industry on October the 7th with all my lefty, liberal, crazy friends. And the attack happened, and I jumped onto social media and started fighting that day. I started advocating. I joined live debates where I would fight with literal British jihadis on social media. And it escalated from there, and I continued to do it. And I vowed to advocate every single day for as long as I need to protect my people. It got to a point in my advocacy career where my life in London was no longer a life. I was living with constant death threats. I was being attacked. I was being stalked. I was not having a good, safe, nice life in London. And I decided the best thing for me, for my safety, and also for my family's safety in London would be for me to come to Israel. So I moved here 6.5 months ago now. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's the biggest blessing in disguise that has ever happened to me. And I am so grateful and so proud and so glad to be a part of this country. I feel blessed. And yeah, as I said, would not have it any other way and will fight till the day I die. And that's me.
Amen.
Very inspiring.
There's an amazing video, by the way, Daniel, of footage security camera that shows exactly how they tried to break in.
Wow.
Yeah, they literally, it's not a matter of speaking, they literally went to her place.
Multiple times.
That's crazy.
Just like the 1930s.
Yeah.
1930s once again.
Nate, would you be able to share with us your personal story?
Sure. Yeah, mine's unusual in the fact that I grew up in a very small town in Massachusetts, small town called Amherst. I went to a Solomon Schechter school growing up, a family that did Friday night dinners, involved with the small community that was in that area. I then went to Kenyon College, which is a small college in Ohio, where I studied English literature. I graduated from there in 2020, and that summer I came to Israel. The very first year I was here, I was in Haifa. I taught English at an Arabic-speaking school. Very interesting experience, tremendous people. Uh, and during that year, I decided to make Aliyah and draft to the army. I served in Duvdevan, a unit that focuses on urban counterterrorism. My team was on the kibbutzim on October 7th. We were then in Gaza, in Lebanon, the West Bank. And since I was released about a year and a half ago, I've been studying law at Reichman University and living in Tel Aviv. The part of my story that I sometimes like to talk about is when I left the US in 2020. Around, let's say, middle school, high school, I started to feel that I had a script that was written for me, having grown up in the US, that having been born on this day, you could say exactly what day I would graduate high school, exactly what day I would graduate college, exactly what day I'd get my master's degree, get married, have a family, have a career, and all the rest. And I realized I had a desire to get out of what some call the rat race. And coming to Israel, I've been here a few times with my family, but the decision, in a way, surprised me as well. Because at first I was just planning to be here for a year, and then I thought about what would be most meaningful for me in my 20s, and I realized that doing the army and having that experience here would mean more to me. It would be something if I didn't do it, I would regret it. And so I did that. I was reading a book recently called, probably a lot of your audience is familiar with it, perhaps. It's Hillel Halkin's Letters to an American Jewish Friend, which he first wrote in 1977. He makes this argument that has stuck with me, which is that any Jew who cares about the future of the Jewish people will move to Israel and focus his efforts on building a strong Jewish people here. I believe in a strong diaspora. I think it's incredibly important. I think it would be a sad world if we lived, if there were no Jews outside of Israel. But I did connect to his idea that Israel is the place in the world most connected to my Jewish identity. And I decided that that's what I wanted to be a part of.
Stav, I have a question for you. As the founder of Frontline Advocates, what did you see in Jess and in Nate that said these two would be perfect to join my mission?
I saw a mandatory. You know, Nate, Danielle, I got my life back several times. First time in protective Operation Edge 2014, previous Gaza war, when a few bullets was whistled next to my ear. I was deaf for a few seconds there, and I thought, all right, no question is asked. There is God, and he's taking care of me. You know, just as he took care of my grandfather back in Auschwitz, where he lost both of his parents, but he survived, and then he managed to come and found the state of Israel. Both Jess and Nate has a common ground, and that is they have the spirits of a warrior. You know, your viewers are very familiar with Musab Hassan Yosef, the Green Prince. I have the privilege of interviewing him several times. Not long ago, a couple of weeks ago, we sat down, just me and him, and I asked him, Musab, what is it that we, the Jewish people in Texas, in München, in Sydney, in Israel, what is it that we need right now? And he said, you've got everything that you've ever needed. I told him, what is it? And he said, it is the spirit of a warrior. Jess literally had to run for her life, just like in the 1930s, from Europe to Israel, because they tried to break into her house. I don't think that they wanted to give her compliments on her menorah, mezuzah, or even to steal anything. They literally came for her, just as they came to my grandfather's place in Khust and kicked him in to get him to a ghetto. Nate grew up as an American kid, you know, played football. He's not not very good, I have to tell you. I've seen some video, Nate. Nah, it's okay. I can't throw. He grew up as an American kid, chose to do Aliyah. He made Aliyah, and then he fought other people, 4 people that he's never met in a in a country that he's never lived, in a language that he cannot speak. Isn't it crazy? I thought to myself, he's telling that very humbly, as if he got milk at the supermarket. This person right here, Ned, witnessed the backstage of the freaking hell. October 7th, it was hell. I've been there. I've seen it. He fought pure evil, Satan himself. Those people came to butcher, to rape, to murder, to take lives. This is what they came to do. Both the terrorists and the civilians, the thousands of them that came to steal. I know in person a guy that got beat to death from Gaza civilians that all they wanted was actually to steal, but they found themselves murdering someone for him being Israeli. Frontline Advocates was founded exactly for and because and thanks to people like Jess, like Nate, many other IDF disabled veterans that lost a hand, a friend, that buried friends and brothers and sisters in Mount Herzl in Jerusalem. Their voices is my life's mission to amplify, because when Jews are staying silent, just like they're trying to do us here at the UN, this is when the troubles are getting bigger and bigger, and then it's just like a snowball. You have to stop it and to cut it from its roots before it is too late. And frankly, when you have a New York mayor that is declining the state of Israel, that is refusing, that is saying, threatening that he will arrest Israel's prime minister, I think this is our cue. When you see, I believe that you have 17 Jewish anti-Semitism attacks on the ground on the basis of anti-Semitism in Israel, in the US. 17 every single day, almost every other any hour. We are flirting with the turning point. It is almost too late. Islam has 3 stages. Frontline Advocates came to the war to stop from that being happened. The US is the first stage. They're taking their positions in Democrat way. They're calling themselves Democrats, socialists, etc., as if they care about anyone else besides themselves. Then the second phase in Europe, when they're already saying openly, we're here to conquer, we're here to bring Sharia law, we are here to cover your women's hairs and faces and heads with hijab. And then the third phase, that's the Islam in the Middle East. Take a look at ISIS. They chopped off the heads of Arabs, of Muslims that did not know how many rak'ah, how many bows you have in a single day of one prayer. More than that, here in Amsterdam, you have an exhibition of flags. I've seen it the other day. I've seen Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq. And I said, hey, what the hell is going on? Where's the state of Israel? Where's our flag? And then when I came closer, I saw the sign, and it says, those are the countries where it's illegal to be gay. And that's the punishment for you to being gay in those countries. For instance, if you're gay, God forbid, in Iran, this is punishment by death. Frontline Advocates came to this war to stop from this madness, to take over the war, because this is their public intent to globalize the Intifada, to globalize one Islamic global state. It's called Akhilafe. Your viewers should know this word, Akhilafe, Akhilafe, Akhilafe. One Islamic global state, one ruler, Sharia law. Women will be slaves. Men either have to convert to Islam or chopped off. Convert and pay tax, by the way. And those are not the extremists' attitude. This is what it means today to be fully Muslim with supporting Sharia law. I have Muslim friends that are not supportive of Sharia law. That's a whole different thing. They are very, very good people. Our problem is within Sharia law.
Thank you, Stav. I want to speak about October 7th. Do you think that in what ways did October 7th permanently change Israel? And in what ways did it permanently change you?
I think in terms of what it did to Israel, it brought the people together in a way that we'd never really experienced before. Prior to October the 7th, 2023, Israel was somewhat fractured internally. There were political conflicts going on within the country. The left hated the right. There was no unity in this country. On October the 7th, with the attack, the entire country came together. It didn't matter whether you were the most left-leaning person or the right-leaning person. There was a general consensus, and that is we must protect our people, regardless. So in a way, and I hate to say this, but in a way, October the 7th was a blessing in disguise. It has changed this country in the long run for the better, because we know that we're stronger together. We know that. And yes, there are still political disagreements within this country, but for the most part, everyone is aligned on the intention and the goal of this war, which is to protect this country at all costs. What it's done for me personally, not only has it caused my whole life has done a 180. I've literally flipped my whole life upside down in the best way, but also emotionally, it's affected me in a way that I never really anticipated. It's caused me to reflect and made me realize just how much of a problem anti-Semitism is. I didn't think it was a problem prior to October the 7th. I'd never felt it or experienced it. But when it happened to us and we had a 24-hour period of empathy before the world turned on us, I realized very quickly this age-old hate, this Jew hate, has never disappeared. It has never gone away. It's been thousands of years of libels and lies, and we thought after the Holocaust we might have some peace and quiet, but it merely sat in the shadows and it's come back with a vengeance. And the problem with festering anti-Semitism is that it causes us as a people to have to fight. And that's not a problem for us. For us, it's a great thing because we've overcome far worse than Hamas terrorists in flip-flops. We've overcome the Pharaoh, we've overcome the Nazis. We'll be fine as a people, but what it does in terms of public image is it makes us look as though we want to fight. We don't. We want peace and quiet. But as long as there is anti-Semitism, which has affected me internally, it's affected Nate, it's affected Stav, as long as that's around, we're going to have a reason to fight. And there's going to be a continual cyclical pattern. We keep seeing it time and time again.
Exactly. Nate, maybe you can share your thoughts with us. I know you were also on the front lines, like Stav said. Maybe you could share your experience as well.
Yeah, on the morning of October 7th, I was at my apartment in Ramat Gan. We were home for the weekend, and I woke up about 7:30 to the sirens, to the bomb sirens, rocket sirens overhead, and our team was quickly told to come back to base. We went to base, and from there, there's just a tremendous amount of confusion, and that's my main memory from that day. Is it's a terrible thing to go into war. It's an even worse thing to do it when you don't know what's actually going on, when there's no concrete intelligence about what was happening. But in a situation like that, there isn't time to hesitate and create a whole strategy. You have to get down there and clean up the terrorists that were there. We took a helicopter down there. I remember being in that helicopter and thinking to myself, first of all, well, how did I get to this point in my life? I grew up in Massachusetts. How did I get here? But more seriously, I was thinking, so this is what it means to follow through on a decision. When I signed up to draft, and I knew there was a possibility I'd be in a war. I personally thought it would be in Lebanon before Gaza, but I remember being on that helicopter and thinking, I made a decision. I'm going to follow it through until its end. I personally am lucky enough to be here and for my whole team to be alive to tell stories. One thing I'd like to talk about, you can get into all the security things about October 7th, and I think the Mideast is a much safer place for Israel now than it was before. So in that way, I'm very hopeful. I would like to comment on the soul of of Israel for a second. I recently, last week, saw Christopher Nolan's new movie, The Odyssey, which is about the Greek king and warrior Odysseus in his journey home, his 10-year journey home from the Trojan War. And part of those 10 years is the physical challenges of getting through stormy seas with ancient wooden ships. Part of it is encountering magical obstacles that the gods put in his way. But the story, and this is an ancient story, and it's just so relevant to today. The story is really about a combat soldier who's trying to find out, how can he return home? How can he return to being a father, a husband, in Odysseus's case, a king? His son and wife, the queen, they have to hold off people on the home front who are threatening the kingdom, hoping that Odysseus is dead. Uh, and so the story is very much about the home front as well as the combat soldier's journey home. I, I think what it left me with is this feeling that in Israel, we're all Odysseus. We're all finding our way home after October 7th. Even those of us who made it home physically from the war are still figuring out how to continue a life where friends and brothers and wives and grandparents were killed, and that's a process each one of us is going through. I think one of the things Israelis are better at than almost anyone else I've met is sitting down and drinking coffee and uh, and talking for hours, and I think that's therapy for us, and I think we're all Odysseus. We're all on our way home. Uh, Even if we're physically home, we are finding our place in society. Israel is finding its place in the world right now. There's a lot of negativity. I think just as Odysseus found his way home, Israel will find its way home too. So I try to leave on a hopeful note, and I love that story of Homer's Odyssey, and I just think it's so relevant to what's going on in Israel today.
Beautiful. Stav, we only met after October 7th, and I know that you created Frontline Advocates. It must have October 7th must have affected you, in a big way. But who was Stav before October 7th? Who's Stav after October 7th? Maybe you can give us your thoughts on my other question.
Daniel, I gotta say, I had the privilege of interviewing dozens of times since October 7th, maybe more. No one has ever asked me that, so I'm gonna give news here. I don't think anyone knows it, but stuff before October 7th I was a dancer. I was a salsa teacher, and I love dancing more than anything in this world. I'm a dancer. This is who I am. This is what I am. I love music. I love dance. I love people. I love smiling. I love laughing. I had two NGOs. One of them is supporting Holocaust survivors. My grandfather survived Auschwitz, and he did the same. So I kind of wanted to be worthy to call myself his grandson. So I followed his path. And another NGO is supporting people with autism, as my older brother Idan is autistic. So kind of seeing how the state is unfortunately cannot give him what he needs. So we did in our NGO personal fitness trainings for people with autism as a part of their therapy to be involved in the world and not being hidden in a corner. Post October 7th, and I was a lawyer. I am a lawyer, and I thought that I'll just minding my own business, be a lawyer of my own NGOs, dance salsa, make people feel more secure with their body. Post October 7th, I realized that I have much a bigger purpose to serve in this world. For 12 years, Daniel, I've been fighting in IDF Special Forces. I lost count of how many terrorists tried to kill me, how many bullets whistled over my hair, how many grenades and explosives has been thrown at me, RPGs, who knows. By the way, not once, I've never seen in my 12 years in the battlefield, not once did I see a terrorist with uniform. Never. They're always either doctors or press or civilians or kids, supposedly, or even one pregnant woman. We had something with her. She pretended to give birth, and then her husband, it wasn't my personal team. She pretended to give birth. Our medic tried to help her, and then her husband were hitting inside of the wall. It's not don't know what's the name of it in English, but you can shoot throughout the wall. Doesn't made out
Cavity wall.
Thank you. And a soldier, the medic got severely wounded. He's an amazing guy. He survived, and this is how they're using their own people as human shields, by the way. But in my 12 years, I've realized that I have to fight for tonight to stop from the next terror attack to happen, or to get the terrorists that just murdered Tseela Gez, for that matter, a pregnant woman, a mother with 3 kids. She was on her way to give birth to her 4th kid, and she got murdered for her biggest crime ever, being Jew. After 12 years after October 7th, I realized that I don't have the privilege of dancing or supporting people with autism or Holocaust survivors, although this is for me my biggest honor that I can serve. My purpose is to serve, is to fight for tomorrow, for the future, not just for tonight, not just to prevent the next terror attack, but to prevent from radicals to take over this world and to prevent from history to repeat itself, as unfortunately we're witnessing that it's starting to take place.
Beautiful. Now, we know that people constantly throw around words like genocide, occupation, apartheid, war crimes. What are the biggest misconceptions about Israel, and what are your thoughts on the misinformation that exists about Israel?
The misinformation that exists and circles Israel nonstop is lunacy, would never hold up in a court of law, unfortunately. When it comes to things like genocide, that is to be judged by the ICJ and the ICJ only, and there has been no such judgment. So when people throw around that accusation, we just have to keep reminding them that as of yet, there is no such judgment. No one can make that determination apart from the ICJ. And until they make that decision, I find it incredibly irresponsible for people to be throwing around that accusation, not just because it's untrue, but also because it waters down what it means to what genocide actually means. And when you understand genocide from the lens of a Holocaust survivor's family, or from someone who grew up and heard about Darfur and Sudan, what is happening in Gaza is an unfortunate war, and by referring to it constantly as a genocide, you are watering down what a genocide is, and that's a very dangerous precedent to set. In addition to that, the occupation accusations, I just struggle to comprehend how on earth we can be considered an occupation when this is our ancestral homeland and this is where we're from. We can't be settlers in a land that we actually came from, so it's problematic as a whole. In terms of ethnic cleansing, again, apartheid, which is my personal favourite. Fly to Israel, step off the plane at Ben Gurion Airport, and within 3 seconds, you will realise that there is no such apartheid. These accusations are baseless, dangerous, ruthless, and every time that someone throws a buzzword at us, occupation, ethnic cleansing, genocide, apartheid, they're all the same. They're being watered down. The terms are being ruined. And they're setting very dangerous precedents where we can just determine anything an occupation, anything a genocide. And it's not conducive to actually solving wars and getting peace. It's actually exacerbating and propagating issues, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Nate, what are your thoughts? Anything to add in?
I'd say the only genocide attempt was by Hamas on October 7th, trying to kill every Israeli they could. I can tell you when I was in Gaza, my team went to great lengths to protect civilians, and we upheld international law. What I learned from some of those experiences is international law and treatment of civilians can often hinge on the actions of an individual, meaning members of my team. Sometimes myself was the one, I myself was the one responsible for that. And you can have all these kind of policies coming down from bodies like the UN all the way to Israeli policy, to IDF policy, to what commanders tell soldiers. At the end of the day, you need a soldier who has been raised in a society that sanctifies life, where he will take every precaution that he can before he pulls the trigger. And that's what I saw. And that's what the Israeli that's what Israeli society teaches its kids. Do not pull a trigger unless you are completely sure that your life is at risk. And I think that's an important thing for the rest of the world to hear. The issue of misinformation and all of that, it's a huge issue. Where we get the news from, I used to my family had the New York Times delivered to our door At some point, I told my mom we need to get the Wall Street Journal too. Let's add in some other sources, and that was before AI and everything. It's incredibly difficult, and it's incredibly difficult to know if my information is real. I ask myself that every time I open my phone. But I think it's what we have to be asking ourselves, and we need to turn to sources of news that we trust. Each person with the one that they think is best, and it's an effort. Everyone has to check the information. How do we know to be true what the information that we receive? It's a huge issue. It takes personal responsibility. The people who care about the truth will find it. Those who don't will live in darkness. And that's their problem. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's Israel's problem. But I put it on every one of us to find out, how do we know the things that we know.
Stav, at this point, you've been on many college campuses. What do you find is how do you deal with these buzzwords that are coming up about against Israel? I know you go head to head with some people there. Give us your experience.
Well, I break it down. If they're saying genocide, occupation, apartheid, I usually ask questions, and usually this does the trick because they don't have any facts to based on, only what they've heard. So once you break it down, that's pretty much not even 50% of the job, but 90, and then all you have to do is punchline. But when I find someone who's academic and actually know what they're talking about, how about this? You don't have to be a law, or you don't need to. You don't even need to be a journalist to know that international law is focused with attempt, meaning what you are trying to do, and your decision-making skills. So when you look at my enemies, Hamas, on October 7th, I've never heard them never seen them trying, because it's attempt, right? Trying to, what they supposedly are doing, free Palestine. They never chanted that, right? They chanted Allahu Akbar, because this is what this is all about. Have you ever heard someone is yelling Shema Israel and bombing himself in a bus station? So international law, it's pretty funny that our strongest card is actually they're trying to use it against us, because I know no other army had to fight in such a crowded battlefield with enemy that hides with hostages in tunnels below hospitals, beneath civilians and pregnant women and elderly. I think that as far as international law concerned, we have the upper hand. And whenever I talk to students, college students in NYU, UCLA, Columbia University, George Washington University, we're going to go back real soon, right? In our next delegation, we're going to go back there real soon with Jess, Nova Survivors, IDF Disabled Veterans, this August, by the way. When we're going out there, we're letting them pick the tools, whether it's international law or propaganda or religion or history or supposedly facts. Either way, you'll always win. You cannot dispel darkness with more darkness, right? Only light can do that. Since we're bringing the light, representing the truth, you can never lose.
Now, I want to ask one last question. Now, you guys are the frontline advocates, as we mentioned. You guys are doing the heavy lifting. But what about all the other supporters of Israel around the world? How can they become advocates? Can they use social media? Can they use other means? What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are ample means to get involved. I also would like to rally the silent majority. I know you're out there. We can no longer afford to be silent. I think that we can no longer afford to be weak Jews. If you're not Jewish and you're seeing your Jewish friends being hurt and harmed and attacked and ostracized, now is the time to stand up for them. You can do that in a multitude of ways. You can do that by being vocal. You can get on social media. You can start advocating. Or it can be little things like going to synagogue or supporting your Jewish friends, telling them you're there. Do as much as you can. That everyone has their own capacity and everyone has their own capabilities. And we're not asking anyone or everyone to stand up with a megaphone in the middle of Times Square and scream, "I'm a Zionist." We don't expect that of people. But I would love to see as many people as humanly possible have the courage to get involved somehow, some way, whether that's via social media, whether that's just supporting your allies, whether that's financially donating and supporting the IDF or the Jewish people affected by this war. There is so much that we can all do. And I think the more of us that get involved and the more people advocating for the truth, the love for the future, because the future is at stake here, the better. So I would encourage everyone to get involved in their own way and however they feel comfortable.
Yeah. Nate?
Yeah, I'm going to say three things. The first is just like if you would see someone getting beaten on the ground in your local mall, I would hope that someone would step in and say something and break it up. The same thing, if you see something anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, you see a swastika in your community, whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, go to the police, report that. History is on your side. Getting rid of disgusting symbols and acts against Jews and against anyone is critical for good communities, not just Israel. Second thing, this is more for Jews. I really believe in supporting small Jewish communities. I came from one. I was a part of one growing up. I was a part of one in college. I think any group of community of Jews anywhere deserves to be supported financially and in any other way. I think we don't want to get to a point where the only strong Jewish communities are Miami, New York, LA, and Chicago. There's tremendous communities there, and the people there are incredible. But I think we need to keep strong Jewish communities in every corner. And third, and this is an invitation to Jews and non-Jews: come to Israel, get on the plane, come to Israel, see what's going on here. Make the decisions for yourself. Everyone is able to get on a plane and come here. There's so many organizations. If you're a Jew, you can get that flight for free. If you're a non-Jew, there's so many organizations that are working to bring people of all faiths, of all backgrounds here. I think it's critical that we get people in the door into Ben Gurion Airport, seeing what's going on here, because I think a lot of people will really change their mind about Israel, and if you don't, well, at least you made a good faith effort to learn about it. And at the end of the day, everyone with their own opinion. But those are my three things: stand up in your communities, support small Jewish communities, and the big ones too, if we can, and come to Israel.
Wow. Very, very important. Stav, we'll end with you. What are your thoughts?
There are some companies, some websites, some organizations that you go on to their website and they're doing so many things you don't even know at the end of the day what they're doing. You know, if someone is pointing a gun to your head and tells you in 7 words or less, tell me what they're doing, you don't know. You know those places in Israel, small shops that they sell hummus? And that's it. Maybe shakshuka. And that's it. This is from an advocate. So we sell hummus. We do 3 simple yet crucial things. First things first, we build bridges, if can be, with different communities, Christians, Muslims, students, people who identify themselves as pro-Palestinians, build bridges if can be. Second thing, we fight anti-Semitism if needs be. You know, this is our training, debating, social media, geopolitics, history, Islam, Christianity, you name it, our speakers are well trained with everything. So they know how to build bridge, or if can be, or to fight anti-Semitism if need be. By doing those things, we hope to do our third thing, which is strengthen Jewish resilience, either by building a bridge, either by standing up. We are doing the front line, the heavy lifting, just as you said. And this is exactly why it's so important to know that who those people that are doing the heavy liftings, good people like Jess, like Nate, other disabled veterans, IDF disabled veterans, other Nova survivors, they are all coming from different places, different backgrounds, different stories, but they are all coming volunteeringly. Danielle, volunteeringly. They're coming time after time for full days of training, for weeks, and then delegations, of course, when their life is in danger, because we've all seen Charlie Kirk and what happened, how it ended up. Of course, we have security, but it is dangerous. Those people are coming volunteeringly to build bridges, fight anti-Semitism, and strengthen Jewish resilience. And this is exactly why supporting Frontline advocates is so simple, yet you get what you see. So simple. You literally allowing good, strong Zionists, because not specifically necessarily only Jews, we also have Muslims and Christians, strong Zionists to fight for the state of Israel. And this brings me actually to thank you, Daniel, because without you, we just have heartbreaking stories from Mount Herzl, from our friends that are lying there. But without you, we don't have the mic, the platform, the stage, the opportunity to tell the world to fight anti-Semitism and to tell the world exactly what is it that we've witnessed that day on October 7th and later the war. So thank you very much for the honor and the fact that you are dedicating your life. You have a family to support. We all know that you're dedicating your life full time for the Jew in Australia, in München, in Israel, anywhere. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Of course. Just to show that even from America, you can do what you can to help Israel and the Jewish cause. Stav, how can people find Frontline Advocates? You have a website. You have some way they can reach you, and maybe if they want to bring you guys out to their community, how can they reach you?
Absolutely. So Frontline Advocates, we have a website, we have social media, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. They can easily contact us. We would love to come to your community, speak to your, I call them next leaders of the US. You call them your kids, but fair game. Both of us are right. So you're more than welcome, your viewers more than welcome to contact Frontline Advocates. We have a website, Instagram, social media, of course, supporting our cause. This is what allows us to train more voices and to bring them out to the States. And may I just add that we are in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. They are helping us with training and many other stuff, and also with IDF Disabled Organization, as they're actually giving us veterans, IDF disabled veterans that we train. It's also a part of their rehab.
Jess, Nate, Stav, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you for everything that you're doing for the Jewish people, the state of Israel. It's truly, inspiring to hear your stories, and I hope that we can speak again soon.
Thank you so much.
Amen.
Wishing you all
Thank
the
you so
best.
much.
Toda, Daniel. Toda.
Sure.
Toda.
Sure.